By the end of this video, you'll be able to fly like Superman with any character inside of Unreal Engine. So the video you see in the background now is a Superman game made entirely in Unreal Engine. And as you can see, the flying system looks pretty sick. So what I did as a celebration for 1,000 subscribers, I went away, took some time and learned how to do it. Now, as a thank you, I'm giving it back to you. But instead of making like a really boring basic tutorial, I thought I would try and cover everything that I could. Okay, so what I've done is learn how to do different states using blend spaces. We're going to add particle effects. We're going to be able to thrust the player character forward like 10,000 times the speed or whatever, and we're going to be adding particle effects. So as you can see in the background, this is my iteration of this little system. And as you can see, we change color to yellow, we have the particle effects, and we can boost our way through the map. It's going to be pretty sick. So let's get started. Finally. So let's start by creating a brand new project, and I'm just going to rename this one Hero Tutorial. And here we are. I'm using the third person template. So we've got the BP third person character here. If we open this up and go into the event graph, we can get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the input, go to the IMC default, add a new mapping and input action. Rename this IA underscore flight. And let's add a key. This is the one that toggles our flight mode on and off. So I'm just going to use one for now. Later on in the video, I will change this to something else. But don't worry about that. We can change it on the fly anyway, so don't worry. Now what I've done is I've gone and got a character from Mixer Mode. It can be literally any character. It doesn't matter. We're just using the skeleton. And then I've just picked two animations, as you'll see in a minute. So I've just imported the character here. Like I said, it's just random. We won't be using this character unless you want me to show you how to do that in another video, which I can do. We can just swap out the meshes and make it look cool. But we're using this for the animations. And I have two animations. This is all you need, really. So one is for hovering. And I'm pretty sure it's a swimming animation. Yeah, it's called Treading Water. And the other one is just flying. Simple as it gets. So I'm just going to highlight all the assets here, and I'm just going to drag them into their own folder, just a hero folder, just to keep it a little bit organized. We're not going to worry too much, but yeah. So here's the two animations I have. Here's the treading water one. We're just going to use this for hovering in the sky. And here's our actual flying one. Now what we're going to be doing is blending between these two animations, depending on if we are in flight mode and our speed in the world, basically. So let's get started. Let's do some of this. Now this skeleton doesn't match up to our SKM Manny skeleton. So what we're going to do is retarget these two animations, and this is why we had to drag in the Mixamo skeleton, so we actually have a skeleton to retarget from. Yeah, basically. So let's just select the skeleton, select the two animations you want. I'm going to use a prefix of MIX and click export into, where should we do it? Yeah, just do it here. Doesn't really matter too much. Now we have our new animations targeted to our SKM Manny. As you can see, they look pretty much the exact same. Sweet. So we have our two animations, and we can actually use these in a blend space now. But before we get onto the blend space, what I want to do is go to the event graph of the BP third person character and search for IA flight. That's the input action inside the input mapping context that we created earlier. Hopefully that made sense. Now I just want to change out a couple of things. So if I'm just going to click on BP third person character and change it from Quinn to Manny, I don't think this really matters, but I just don't really like the way Quinn looks. I just prefer Manny. So I'm just going to do that. Then out of flight, for the started value, I believe. In fact, actually, no, let's create a variable. We need to know if we are in flying mode, basically. So let's create a new variable, and it's going to be a Boolean. And it's just going to be is flying. And if we drag out while holding Alt on our keyboard, we can set it just like this. So for now, I'm just going to do cancelled and completed, and on triggered, we're going to set it as true, and cancel completed false, basically. And this isn't going to be a toggle. This is going to be like hold it down, sort of button thing, but we'll change it to a flip-flop later, don't worry. Now we're in the event graph of the animation blueprint, and we need to fix up some stuff here. Because if I was to try and get the reference for is flying, we wouldn't be able to like get it properly. Now I want to set it inside this event graph from our player blueprint. So when we press the button, we're toggling is flying, and if we are not toggling the button, pressing the button, sorry, we are not flying, basically. That's how I want to do it. So as you can see here, I'm just searching up and struggling to find anything, but the variable is here, and as you can see, it inherits from BP third person character, not just character. And I'm pretty sure the exact same thing, but I mean, I don't know why this doesn't work, to be honest. But if you can help me on that, maybe you can. But we've got another way around. We're just gonna recast to the BP third person character, just like this. Connect that up, connect that into character movement, which will set the new variable there. We're going to delete this get, and we're going to actually drag out of here, convert to validated get, and connect that up. Now, if we try, we should, oh, well, maybe not. Here you can see a little bit of debugging from myself. So let's actually change out the validated get here because it's still character, not BP third person character. My bad. Okay, so let's promote that to a variable here and drag that over here. It needs to be a variable before we can actually set it, just like this. So delete that, bang that into there. We're going to delete this one, drag out of here, convert to validated get, and there we go. We have everything set. Now we can actually get our is flying variable, Boolean, from our event graph of the BP third person character, and we can actually set it. So we've got a reference to it now. And we can actually use this reference inside of the animation blueprint when we want to switch animations. Hopefully I'm not just babbling and you're actually picking up something. I'm trying to explain it in a way where I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm telling you like why we are doing it, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. And I was trying to set this variable here. I was trying to do this for a while. The video has been cut up, and I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And it just turned out that I needed to create the actual variable inside of the event graph. So we'll do that in a minute. Don't worry about that. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to disconnect locomotion and disconnect the main states, just temporarily. So as you can see, when it's disconnected, it looks like this. And let's go back to the anim graph. Okay, for simplicity, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to disconnect some of these. We're going to use this locomotion, but we're not going to use the main states. So let's just disconnect that, connect that into default slot, and just move these down for now. This will be fine. We won't be able to have any animations when we jump, as you can see, but we can still walk and run around. This is just for simplicity, just to show you how we set it up, and then we'll connect it all up back. We'll connect it all back up later. So inside our anim graph, in our locomotion state, we can actually create a new state inside of here, and it's going to be is flying. But what did we not do a minute ago? We didn't actually set this correctly because we still not got the variable there, right? So let's actually just delete this stuff here. And let's create this new variable is flying, just like we did in the BP third person character event graph. So if we just drag out of here while holding Alt, we can set it. And what do we need to set it? We need the reference from the event graph of the BP third person character. So we're going to get is flying and set is flying inside the event graph of the animation blueprint. Okay, sweet. So we've got a reference to is flying inside the BP third person character and inside the ABP, basically. Now we can actually create this new state because we have a is flying variable, and we can check if we are or if we aren't. So let's right click state, and we're going to rename this flying, or maybe BS flying, because we're going to be creating a blend space where we blend between two different animations, the ones we imported earlier. So let's actually not do idle. Let's just do blend space flying, and we can just connect this up just like this. One arrow there, one arrow there, and that means basically when we're walking and running, we can't fly. We can't transition to this, but when we are idle, we can. And don't worry, we'll change this later. So let's just connect is flying into here, just like this. And now for the opposite way, going back to idle, we're going to check if we are not flying. So we're going to get a not boolean and just connect that up like that. So if we are flying, we're going to go into the blend space. If we're not, then we'll go back to idle. Now there's nothing inside this state right now, so we need to actually create the blend space we're going to use. If you wanted to, you could just use one singular animation, but it's going to look a lot better if you use a blend space. And make sure the blend space you're creating is a blend space 1D. If we go to animation and legacy, we can create a blend space 1D, because we don't need two different axes. We only need the speed variable. We don't care about the direction. So BS1D underscore flying, just like this. And then we're going to go up to the top left into horizontal axis, not the function. This one here, rename it speed. And then depending on what speed we are going, we will blend between the two different animations. So let's search for, no, let's type in like 1,000, because we're going to be flying pretty fast. Leave everything else as default, I reckon. And then we can go into the content and make sure we're dragging in the ones that we retargeted. So it should have this skeleton on it, not the old one. So on the left, when we're at 0, we're going to hover. And on the right, we're actually going to be flying, just like this. It's going to transition depending on what speed we are. Okay? So 0, hovering, 1,000, flying. But what I'm going to do is going to drag this one while holding shift over here, just so it transitions faster. And then, yeah, you could add a different animation at the end. I'm just going to add the exact same one. So just like this. So flying, and then the start will be the treading water idle one, or hovering one, as you can see. I only did that so it just transitions faster. Sweet, we can save that, and now we can just add in our blend space. So let's go to our content folder, characters, dragging our blend space, and it's asking us what speed, and we already have the ground speed here. So highlight everything, press Q, compile, save, go back to the third person map, click play, and now when we press our key, which is our 1 key, we go into this flying mode. And as you can see, when we're at 0 speed, it'll hover. And when we actually move around, it will like go into the flying state, or the flying animation when we're actually over a certain speed. Okay, so that's kind of working, but we need to be able to move up and down. We need to be able to boost, and we need to be able to do this while walking and running. So let's just connect these back up here, and let's just do the exact same as what we did before. To be honest, I don't even really know why I disconnected this, but let's just copy and paste this. So when we go from flying to idle, we're going to paste and use the not boolean. And then we're going to delete the not boolean and add it to when we go from walk run into flying. Yeah, just like this. So let's just paste, delete the not boolean, and then, yeah, sweet. Now we can actually sprint and then transition into the flying mode and transition back. But right now we're not actually flying, because we're still in this walking state. Even though we've said we are flying in the boolean, we've not actually changed the state. So we need to actually do that. So let's go back to the BP third person character, or whatever character you are using. Let's highlight these two, drag them out. And out of here, we're going to get the character movement, set movement mode. And we're going to set the movement mode to flying. Connect this up into triggered, and just like this. Line everything up, make it look a little bit more neat. Drag it out like this, and then we're going to do the same for below, but we're just going to change the movement mode to walking. So if we just select these two, Control C, Control V to copy and paste and set it to walking. Like this. Sweet. Now we'll be able to actually fly about and we won't be able to jump anymore. So if we go, I'm pressing jump and we can't jump. Now we can actually jump and then transition into the flying mode. Because we shouldn't be able to jump when we're flying, basically. And as you can see, we're actually keeping the same height as, like, when we move up an object, we're actually keeping the same height. Instead of, like, going back to our walking state height, if that makes sense. Now we can actually connect these back up. So I'm going to connect the main states into default slot and the locomotion into the other one. And we can transition. And everything's working. And now we have our falling animation when we stop flying in midair. So what else do we need to do now? We actually want to add the thruster. So we're not just going at like one speed. We can actually accelerate for a certain amount of time or something like that. So I'm going to go into inputs again, IMC, click mapping, add a input action, just like this, and we're going to rename this IA_thruster. Just like that. Click save, and let's assign a key. For now, I'm going to use the E key. We won't be using that later, we'll be changing it to something else, but that'll do for now. Now we can right click in the event graph, search for thruster or IA_thruster. Make sure it's this one, the enhanced input action one. And then we're going to get the character movement, which holds the flying speed and stuff like that. In fact, first we need to actually check if we are flying. So if we are flying, then we can do this code. So let's do that. Then character movement, and we're going to get the flying speed. So we're going to get and set this. So let's just connect it up here to true. And let's line this up. And what do we want the max fly speed to be? You could use like 10,000, 5,000, anything's really good. You can just test and see what you like. Depends how big your map is. And then out of the false value, I'm actually going to print a string to see. Well, let's just name it something like do nothing. Or not flying, maybe. Yeah, that'll do. So you'll see when we actually press the throttle button or the thruster button, it'll print not flying if we're actually not able to do anything. This is just a good way to debug it. And then out of the cancelled or completed, we're basically going to do the opposite. But first, I just want to check the max fly speed. So it is 600. Why is that not pasting? 600. There we go. And the max fly speed, I'm going to use like 5,000. Then we can connect that up to cancelled or completed. And same again, false is going to be not flying. So basically what we're doing when we press the button, we're going to set the speed and we're going to increase the speed, sorry. And then out of the cancel or complete, we're just going to set it back to normal when we release the button. So there's a few more things we can do here to actually debug this, and we can just connect a print string into this and just convert it like we have here. We can search for a append node. Append, not that one, not that one. Let's drag out of the string here and append, just like this. So yeah, plug that into B, and then the A value is going to be whatever you want. So I'm going to put max flight speed for now. And then the actual flight speed will be B, because that's coming out of the max flight speed. And I'm just going to do this, connect it up. Let me just double check. There we go. Right, so basically what we're doing, we're getting the max fly speed, and we're printing it on the screen. So when we go into fly mode, if we click play, make it full screen, press 1 to go into our flight mode, and then when we hit the thruster, it should print our speed. There we go. So we're now at 6,000, and then when we release, it'll go back to 600, but it's not printing it because we need to do it in a different way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it by tick and just show you how we print this. So I've just moved that into started from the input action movement mode because I genuinely couldn't figure out what I'd done. And every time I was pressing the button and releasing it, it was just quite obviously now, like just starting the code and then just going back and setting it to walking again. So yeah, I realized that I needed to add a flip-flop into this. It seems pretty simple now, but like at the moment in time, it was such a headache to actually do. But yeah, right. So what I've done here before we actually add the flip-flop, I'm going to change this here to current flight speed. I've just copy and pasted the nodes we made a minute ago. And the B value is going to be our current flight speed. So if we get the character movement and then get max flight speed, this will be our current, because we're setting the max flight speed anyway. So if we click compile and delete the rest of this, then when we click play, it'll constantly be printing our speed every single frame. So here we go, nothing, and then when we hit the thruster, we actually go up to 5,000, and then when we release, you can see it goes back to 600 or whatever it is. So that is working correctly. And if you don't really need to have this, it's just a good way to debug it. So I'm actually going to change out some of the buttons for this because we need to be able to move up and down, which I want to do with Q and E. I think I'm going to change the thrusters to space and the flight mode to F, something like that. And at this point was where I was like, okay, we maybe need a flip-flop because it's just like toggling it on and off in just one key press, and it was annoying me. But yeah, sometimes when you're just like buried in a load of like nodes and you're trying to figure out stuff off the top of your head, like I was doing in this video, because this is completely off the top of my head, sometimes you just get lost. So I kind of wanted to show you what actually happens behind the scenes. So I've just got a flip-flop out of started, and we're going to switch it like this. Now we can actually just toggle it on and off instead of holding the flight button. Sweet, that works a lot better. Now I'm just going to go into the character movement and change the braking deceleration for the flying. So like 2000 just makes it a little bit more smoother because we can actually stop a little bit faster when we use the thrusters. So let's just fly around a little bit and check this braking deceleration. So as you can see, we stopped quite fast now. Lovely. Now this is all looking pretty good, and I think we are getting to the end point of this video. But we still need to add the ability to move up and down. So let's go and do that. So I'm going to change the flight to F. The thruster can be space, I guess. That'll do. And then I'm just going to check this quickly. So we're flying with F, and then we can actually press space to use the thrusters. Okay, that works fine. This is why we had to change the movement mode earlier, because it would have just been jumping in midair otherwise. Now I'm quickly going to show you how you can actually change your FOV. It just gives it a little bit more depth to the whole system, but we're actually not going to use it in this video. I'm just going to show you how to set it up, and then I'm going to remove it because I can't be bothered making a timeline. Okay, so I've been working on this for hours and hours and learning it for weeks. So here we go. If we get the full camera, set the field of view, we can actually set it to like 120 when we actually start the thrusters, and then we can do the opposite and set it back to here. But as you'll see in a minute, when we click play, it'll snap between the two FOVs, which isn't really what we want. And in that case, if you didn't want it to snap, you could obviously lerp it using a timeline. I'm sure there's loads of videos online on how to like lerp it smoothly. in a timeline. But I don't really want to make one right now. So as you can see, we are changing the FOV when we use the thrusters. It just gives it a little bit more depth. But like I said, I'm just going to remove it. There's a little bonus tip anyway. Right, okay, now let's finally make our up and down input action so we can actually move, well, fly up and down. Because right now we're only at like one height, and the only way we can go up and down is when we hit like a ramp. So let's add a mapping. And it's going to be input action, and it's going to be IA underscore fly up down, or UD I'm going to use. Now, once we have that, we need to assign 2 keys this time. So the first key is going to be Q or E, whichever one you like, or any key really you want. You could have this on like mouse wheel, scroll up or scroll down, whatever. And then we're going to click the little plus and add the other key just like this. Now, on the second key, we need to actually add a modifier, and it's going to be a negate. So we're going to do the opposite of the first key. So Q is going to be up and E is going to be down, basically. Now, if we search for this input action, fly UD, just like this, we can actually add some code to this. And as well, we need to actually change the input action to an axis 2D. I've completely forgot about that because we're going to be obviously using 2 different values. So now when we expand it, we see this action value, and we can split the struct just like this, and we get 2 different values. So one will be plus and one will be negative, basically. Now this is getting a little bit messy, so I'm just going to comment some of this stuff, like highlighting it all and pressing C. So let's just rename this one. Checking flight speed. Okay, so let's drag out is flying. We're going to get that, and then we are going to drag out and press B to get a branch to check if we are flying or not. Just like here, we're actually going to be adding something very, very similar here. So we're going to be adding some movement values. So out of true, we're going to add a movement input. And we need the up vector. So we're going to get the controller, just like this. Out of the return value, I'm going to search for up vector, like this. And how much are we going to add to this? Well, that is going to be the scale value, or the action value of the X key, which is Q, if that makes sense. So when we're pressing Q, we are using the X value. When we press E, we're using the Y value, and that's either going to add or negate to the world direction, which is up. Hopefully that made sense. Mate, I've been learning this for a few weeks, man. It's been boggling my mind. But I'm very, very happy I've actually got it sorted, and I can actually teach people something pretty cool, especially because I hit 1,000 subscribers and I've had people on the Patreon. So thank you everybody that's subscribed and that's on the Patreon. I really appreciate it. Now we can move up and down, we can float when we're at 0 speed, we can toggle between our flight mode, and we can use our thrusters. Lovely stuff. Now, what I'm going to do, they're going to cut this one a little bit short because it has been long enough already. In the next, I'm going to make like a part 2. So in the next one, I will be adding the particle effects and everything else, and just smoothing in some stuff out. Okay, so stay tuned for the next one. I'll catch you later. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video if you want a part 2. Peace.